Hey, welcome to another After Effects tutorial. I'm going to be going through how to do clouds in After Effects or cloud strategies, and I'm not going to be using particular, not because I don't think it's a good plugin, it's good to have other options. So we're going to be covering this technique here first, where we're adding sort of a parallax to a picture of clouds, sort of making it look like it has 3D motion to it. So the way to do that, let's start from scratch. We need to bring in our cloud layer into our timeline, and we can scale it down. So select the layer, hit S, and then bring it down. And then what we're going to do is add a distortion. So select the layer, go Effect, Distort, and Displacement Map. And now what we're going to do is add a displacement to it. So with the layer selected, so HD Clouds 2, good, used for horizontal displacement. And we're going to go to luminance. And you can move the displacement on the horizontal with this guy here, and you can see that you start to get that parallax look. Now you don't want to push it too far because then it starts to get weird images, but just a little bit and you get that fantastic sort of 3D. So we'll go to -11, select the stopwatch to do a keyframe, move forward in the timeline, and then we can go to like +11. And if we scrub through, we can start to see that we have some parallaxing. So this could be a fake camera move and maybe have some 3D text or an object or whatever. So that's one strategy for doing clouds in After Effects. Another strategy for doing clouds in After Effects is this guy here. So here we have these clouds. So let's show how we did these. So let's delete all this stuff. So let's go Layer, New, Solid. We'll do it black, make comp size, good. And then below that guy, we'll add another layer. So we'll go Layer, New, Solid. And this one will make it sort of cyan, sort of the color of the sky. So with the top layer selected, we're going to select a noise effect. So we'll go Effect, Noise, Fractal Noise. And you can already start to see that these are sort of cloud formations. And what you can do is put it into the screen blending mode, so only the clouds show up. And then you can fine tune the clouds with contrast and brightness, like so, to make them look more distinct or not more distinct. As a hint, whenever you're dealing with a plugin that you're not familiar with, just select the layer with the plugin, then select the plugin, and then go down here with the light bulb in a bubble, hit it, and it comes up with this sort of brainstorm app, and it gives you different options with a plugin. And down here you can increase the randomness and hit brainstorm again, and you can come up with some really interesting looks within the plugin. So if you like a sample, you can just select it and then hit this guy here to apply to composition, and it changes it for you. So now what we can do is put it as a 3D layer. So we can select the layer, hit the 3D box, and we can move it around. So hit W for your rotation tool, select the x-axis, and we can rotate it like so. And then we can add a camera, layer, new, camera. We'll go 50mm, that's my favorite. And you can move the camera around as required to further sell the shot. So you could be panning or pulling out or rotating, whatever. That's an option for clouds. Another option for clouds is this guy here. So this is a little bit more complex. I'm using a particle system, so let's jump into how we did this one. Sorry, we'll delete all our layers to start from scratch. The first thing we're going to do is put our base layer in the background. So we'll go New, Solid, do our royal blue or cyan again, whatever. And then we will go Layer, New, Solid. We can go black, it doesn't really matter. We're going to be adding the particle system to this layer. And then finally we're going to bring in an asset. I'm using this picture here. And all it is a cloud image that has an alpha layer to it. So just go into Google Images and search clouds, PNG, or alpha layer, or transparency, or something along those lines. Okay, so we can hide that layer. We're just going to use it in the particle system. So with your solid selected, we'll go Effect, Simulation, CC Particle World. So we'll go here, birth rate, we'll bump that up to like 3.5. And then for the life of the particle, we'll bump it up to maybe 15 or so we don't see any particles dying during the entire comp. So that'll work. Then we're going to go to producer. With the producer, we want the clouds to be coming towards us. So it needs to be very narrow up and down and very long left and right. So with the X and Y positions of the producer, we can move it a little bit down for the Y, like somewhere there. And then we're going to move it back in Z space. So pushing it back slightly. So maybe to like 0.5. That will work just fine. And now what we need to do is change the shape of the actual producer itself. So we want to make the X axes of the producer very wide because we want full cloud coverage on our screen. So we're going to punch this up very aggressively. So maybe to like 1.5. And then the Y radius of the producer, we want it to be very narrow. So I'm going to actually bring it down all the way to 0. And then the Z forward and back size of the producer, we'll increase it a little bit just to give it some depth. Now what we're going to do is go into our physics. We want it to be a directional axis. Velocity, we want to have very little velocity because we want the clouds to be sort of moving gently as if we're actually flying through the clouds. So we'll bring down the velocity to like 0.2 or something like that. And inherent velocity we don't care about. We want to have 0 gravity. So we'll put in 0 gravity there. Resistance, extra angle, we don't want any of that. So 0 and 0 on the angles. Directional axis, this is important. This is how the clouds are going to be moving. So we'll sort of play with this. And then as soon as you start to play with it, this guy comes up here and you can actually just move it to the way you want it. And just play with it until you sort of get the look that you're looking for. So now you can see the particles are moving towards us right now, which is good. So we can sort of scrub through, and that's looking really good. So we have the particles moving towards us as if they were little clouds or we were flying through the particles. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is deal with our particles. So we're going to go particle type. We're going to go textured faded disk. And we are going to do 0 rotation speed because we don't want it to be rotating throughout the comp because clouds don't typically rotate. Birth size, let's punch up the birth size 1.4-ish, and then they can get a little bit bigger as they get older in the comp. Size variation, we do want to have some size variation because we want some clouds to be small and some clouds to be big. So 50% size variation is okay. And then opacity, they are clouds, so most clouds have a transparency to them, so we can bring down the opacity just a little bit. Now what we need to do is add our texture to it. So we'll go texture and we're going to select the cloud alpha PNG. And that's looking not bad. So here we have our clouds. We're having some color issues, so we'll go down to here to birth color and we'll punch it down to 0. And then death color, we'll add a slight blue to it, just very, very subtle. Just a very subtle blue. And there we have our clouds. So you can see that our clouds are quite dark, and that has to do with the actual picture that we're using for the textures. So this is our picture. So what we need to do is add some adjustments to this. So what we'll do is select the cloud layer that the particle system is using. So with it selected, we'll go Effect, Color Correction, and add a tint. And we just want to reduce the blacks a little bit into blues. So map blacks to a slight blue. And then what we're going to do is go Effect and add a fast blur just to make the edges less sharp. So it's a little bit more convincing because clouds are poofy. So you'll notice that even though we've added color correction to the cloud layer that we're using for our particle system, it's not being reflected in the actual clouds in the particle system. That's because it's only using the actual picture and not compensating with any effects that we add to the picture. So what we're gonna have to do is pre-compose the layer to see the changes in the particles as well. With the layer selected, we'll go Layer, Pre-compose, and because we've added effects to it, we're gonna have to select Move All Attributes into the new composition, and then hit OK. And we don't need to open, well, we can open it, sure, why not? So it has its own composition. We'll go back to the original composition, and you can see now that the clouds have been affected with the color correction and the blur. And that's how I came up with those clouds there. Also, what I ended up doing was adding a flare in the background to make it look like it was the sun. So we can go new, solid. Okay, good. And we can bring it below the clouds, so there. And I just added a lens flare from Video Copilot, so optical flares. We'll go options, light, evening sun, sure. And then we can move it back here. We can make it nice and bright, like so. Just move it down a little bit. And then we'll select the layer and hit screen blending mode. And that's how I came up with the clouds using a particle system. And you can play with the settings to get it looking how you want. So I hope that helped. There are options for creating clouds, various options. I mean, each technique, whether it be a particle system or the fractal noise or just a simple picture displacement, can be used in various situations. And just the concepts of picture displacement can be applied to more than just clouds. You could do sort of landscapes with adding parallax. With the fractal noise, you can combine it with a displacement map and add some interesting textures to clouds. And with the particle effects, it doesn't have to be clouds. It could be something else like sparks or something along those lines. So hopefully this helped out. A really good tool, like I said, is the brainstorming tool. So you just select the layer, select the effect, and hit the light bulb, and that comes up with the brainstorm tool, which will help you experiment with plugins that you're not familiar with. Thanks for tuning in, guys. We'll talk to you later.